Hello again, and welcome to another hair drawing lessons with color pencils. This time we're gonna start our color pencil terracotta for the outlines. Terracotta is one of the colors we're gonna use a lot in this course. It's something between red and brown and is a perfect color for either hair drawings, skin tones, and a lot of other subjects out there. So please pay attention to the drawing parts and follow the outlines. You can always find these outlines in your downloadable resources, either as a freehand outline or on a grid. So as you can see, end of the hair needs to have a knot and to be drawn with different line strokes, which should be in different direction. So we are going towards the end of it. In the previous two lessons, you saw that we did different hairstyles with different colors like blonde and brunette. So we are drawing with horizontal strokes right now. So the top parts needs to look fuller comparing to the rest, which go down slowly. And while we are making sure all the hair strokes are there, we're gonna start like determining where each part should be. Please follow along, have your paper. Either you can have a cast art, Strathmore, or Daler Rowney. Any of them would be fine depending on your taste. I have put what are my favorite like papers on your downloadable resources, also on your assignment and projects, which you can find it there. Download and go through all these details. So the end part of the hair you just saw, it became much thinner and also more color. We are almost done with the main outline of the hair drawing, and so we can go through the coloring parts slowly and gradually. Please, for the drawing parts, be patient. Make sure everything's in the right position, direction, and everything's done before hastily like going to the next part, which should be the coloring part. So as this part of the hair has more reddish color, we can use variety of red color that you have. We always emphasize don't limit yourself with the color pencil that you have, but use the ones that already you have and you have already bought. You don't have to buy a full set, just go with the ones that you already have. So this one is called Orange Glaze. It's very orange. It's one of the, even though it's called orange glaze, but one of the very orangey colors you can find in any set. So please have a look which areas we are using this color. Usually next to the knots and where it becomes more curvy. We are not going to speed up this area because I want you to have a look and follow along. So after we finish the first layer with the orange base, before moving on, we add more details onto the end parts of each hair connection, which I'm going to show you to after the first layer is done. You can see I'm taking my time going through the whole area, making sure there is no place that I have missed. You can see how easily that I'm putting all the colors where they should be placed. So as I mentioned, the dark areas here and here, they should actually be much darker. So now, since we are done with the orange base layer, we're gonna use a combination between burnt ochre and burnt sienna for this area. Like here, a darker color. We're going to mix these two colors together, which this one has a tendency towards darker brown. It has some reddiness in it as well. Please follow along until we are done with the second layer, which I consider that one is. And we have to determine where we should add all the dark parts with this pencil, color pencil, and where we should not actually touch the highlights. So again, like the previous lessons, we have determined where are the highlights, and we make sure that the whiteness of the paper to stay intact. So slowly going through the same areas as we did with the orange layer. Even though we have used orange, we have to use a lot of darker brown. So if we only use actually orange, it's not gonna come out nice. So it's gonna look like very raw and unfinished and more unnatural, I have to say. Going around, make sure all the lines there, all the layers. Even though layers here are quite different from the previous lessons that we learned, because these are more towards strokes. So if you go back to the first lesson, you should remember that we did hatching and cross hatching. So again, with our terracotta color, which is closer to orange, we're gonna start going through another layer, giving more orange but darker orange base, and also combining it with more with darker color, darker brown. So a combination of burnt sienna and ochre and also terracotta, all these colors coming together, especially with the orange glaze we use, gonna give us the color we like for a red hair. However, if you don't have any of these, a darker brown and orange color with some actual red color will give you the effect that you're looking for. You just have to make sure that you combine yellow, orange, and red well together through to get to the colors you exactly want. So adding more pencil pressure here, we have to be more precise as I mentioned on the screen that we have to start the main coloring layer soon. These are all I have to call base layers, even though we have applied so many of them. They're still very basic. Now with ease, we can add our main orange color on the surface after this. You can see we are getting closer to the colors we like, to that orange red color we needed to. Even with the blonde hair color, you saw that how much darker color we use. The amount of the yellow and also ochre we use on it was much less than the darker color we use for it. Again, we are going to start with terracotta and go ahead with it. Sometimes I make a mistake with the spelling of this one and the pronunciation, but it is my favorite color. So my apologies, sometimes I call it terracotta, or different ways. If you know the right pronunciation, do let me know in the comment section and when you actually submitted your assignments for me to look at them. So as you can see, we are going through the layers with our lovely terracotta. So I can even call it darker orange if it helps. Completing the areas that need it. Near the lines should always be darker and make the hair stand out even more. This doesn't just apply for here, even in the previous lessons you saw how much we paid attention when it comes near the outlines, how much like more shadows, like shading, blending stuff we need to create. After this, I'm going to show you that again we're gonna use orange glaze, which is a lighter version. So the technique that I have told you several times in the previous lessons to use lighter colors on darker colors for blending techniques. Instead of white, I'm going to use my apology, a lighter version of that color and blend them together instead of using a blender or actually white. This way you will have a much richer texture, a much richer like feeling onto anything that you're drawing instead of just using a blender or white or even burnish it out completely. So this way it's quite unique, it's very enjoyable, it's fast, and also it gives you a very nice feeling. So we're going to complete the rest of the surface near the nuts. Everywhere we see that hasn't been done, we're gonna add our orange glaze. If you don't have the name orange glaze, please pick up a light orange from your set, and if you don't have it, combine your darker orange, or even if you have red with yellow, that will give you orange. So for instance, if you want to create a light orange and you only have red and yellow, use more yellow and less red and create that color combination. Take your time, go around, and be careful of the highlights. You can see that I'm extremely careful when it comes to those areas. So after this layer, you can see we picked up our burnt ochre number 187, and again gonna add more layer onto the orange glaze that we just did. So we are doing more blending technique towards mild burnishing to reduce the visible lines and to create a smoother texture. After that, the areas with more orange colors, we can use a little darker brown later. So just bear in mind, maybe you can, if you have burnt sienna, that would be lovely. If you don't, you can use another brownish color for that area, for those areas. Look at my hand movements, how I go around, observe all the areas, and then now I picked up the burnt sienna as I mentioned to reduce the oranginess as well and create more texture. More visible lines, give some really obvious like hair strokes. A little add more pressure onto your pencil and also hand to create those, because whenever you add a lot of layers, these kind of lines they can get created a little harder, especially if it's full burnished. You will not be able to do it, but since we never do full burnish on this course, we do have courses actually we do realistic and hyper realistic drawings, color pencil drawings, but this is not completely hyper realistic, and it teaches you a very unique certain style which is fast and very easy to do. We're almost done. So for those last touches, we can add some additional hair strokes. After that, we can use really dark brown color. It's not necessarily a step, but we can add more details with it. Also, I hope you really enjoyed this lesson while we are continuing going through the details with the additional hair strokes. Please do practice afterwards and also while watching it with different colors, with different like color combination. It's very important you understand your color pencils so it gets the fear out of you and makes you love your pencils more and experiment with them even more. In the next lesson, we are going to draw a white hair, which has been requested from me so many times. So that's one of the lessons I'm really looking forward to introduce to you guys. the last touches with our burnt sienna or a darker brown if you have. You can see my hand barely touches the surface. Well, it is very unusual sometimes using black, especially on red or orange hairstyles, but we are it's minimum pressure. It just, even if you don't add it, it's not gonna make any difference. So that's okay if you don't use it. So these are the last parts. Again, we are using terracotta, and I can see it's almost done. Just making sure I'm not going onto the highlights, but actually blending the colors that I have and give some um, more details onto the surface. Gonna use the colors that I have already used. Just don't forget adding more details, more layers, and blend more colors. Gonna make your work more desirable, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and bye bye.